Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is day 20 out of 30 of me talking to the camera. The purpose of this challenge is to help me gain camera confidence. In the description down below, I do have a link to day 1 which talks about my goals and the purpose of this challenge. In today's video, sorry, let me backtrack. Up on my screen, you will see the guide I've been using to give me different topics every day. And for today's topic, I'm actually going to ditch it. The topic says to reflect on how I've grown over the years, and at this point, there was actually a topic we had at work today where we were having the conversation of nurture oops, sorry, I was not supposed to go off. The conversation was nature versus nurture, and how I believe that I don't know which side to believe, and I'll give examples. If you guys don't understand what nurture means and nature, okay, so the nurture is, so let's just say you're growing up and in your household, you're being treated very kindly and you're more likely to have a more kind personality based on your upbringing. Versus if somebody were to grow up in an abusive household, they're more likely to be abusive. But that's based on the nature. It's like what you see or what you grow up in is, that's nurture. Based on, like what you see and how you grew up, that's more likely to take on how you are. Versus nature, where it kind of is based on your genetics. And just because you could have grown up in a nice and caring household, you can still turn out to be a complete a-hole and just not. And like I said, you can still turn out to be a total a-hole because of your genetics. You could have had a grandparent or just something. And so in the examples that I want to give, I have a cousin. Her father had it out with the Colombian drug lords. This was back in the 90s, and he was out in Miami. And, and so at this point, this was my aunt and her husband. My aunt came off the banana boat from Cuba. And so my aunt had married this guy. And so this guy had it out with a Colombian drug lord. Well, they had a child together, and then she quickly divorced him because she saw what he was all about and said, nah, I'm done. So he had very little involvement in my cousin's life, which was their daughter. And around 11, he had passed away because it was either the Colombian drug lords that he owed a lot of money to were going to get him, or he was just going to end up going 6 feet under. So he ended up overdosing on drugs. And so that left him with, that left him, not having much involvement in raising their child. However, the moment my cousin turned 18, and my cousin grew up in a predominantly, respectful Catholic household, and she seemed to have a promising future. She had a partial scholarship to go to some university in Florida, and the moment she turned 18, she just did a 180. She looked like, pretty much you would have thought that she was raised by this guy. And I'm like, how? I don't understand. So yeah, all her traits just started reminding people of this guy. And she had no idea anything of what he was about, didn't know anything about his drug stuff. People were keeping it under wraps so she wouldn't, be like, oh yeah, my dad's this, my dad's that. And so that's just kind of one of my examples of where I think that it's more nature versus nurture. That doesn't matter how nurturing my aunt was to her, she just straight up turned out the way she did. And I'm going to talk about my brother. So growing up, my brother has always been dramatic. He's always made things about himself. He's been vindictive. And these were traits of things that my uncle and my grandmother would have done, some of the things he's done. And my brother had some interaction with them, but not to the point of where you thought he would have been raised in that household, which he was raised in the household with me, and I turned out more like my parents, where I'm not doing all his tendencies. And again, this makes me question nature versus nurture. And honestly, it could be a combination of the two. I think there was a study that I was told about that there was a set of twins that were adopted out, and that they were one was put into a nice household and one was put into the hood. And I forgot what the outcome of what the study was. If I can find it, I'll link it down below. But it was an interesting concept, and it just makes you wonder And honestly, at this point, I'm starting to think that it's most likely nature versus nurture, because you can be as kind as you want to your kids, but they can turn out to be the biggest a-holes, and you're like, well, I did everything I could. So that will conclude today's rant. I do apologize if I was looking around. It's the end of my work day and people are going home, if you couldn't tell by the leaving cars. So yeah, so I will conclude today's video on that note. I will see you guys in tomorrow's video, and have a good rest of your day. Adios!